We acknowledge that Tri-Cities Community Television operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. We thank the Coquitlam who continue to live on these lands and care for them along with the waters and all that is above and below. Welcome to Tri-Cities Community Television. I'm Cathy Cena, and we are here at Poirier Library, and we'd like to thank the Coquitlam Library for donating the space to us. We continue our election series, and in the studio today, we have Michael Thomas. He is a school board trustee, and he's up for re-election in Port Coquitlam. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Cathy.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Yourself?
I'm great, thank you. Let's just jump right in. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for school trustee in District 43.
Well, my name's Michael Thomas, as you said. I'm a 3-term school trustee, so I've been on the board for 12 years. I'm a parent of 3. I have current students in the district, been married for 23 years, and in Port Coquitlam for the last 21 years, born and raised in the Tri-Cities, and gone through school here in SD43 as well. I'm running because I believe in public education. I believe that public education is the great equalizer in our society. We are fortunate in Canada, in BC, in SD43 in particular, to have an excellent education system, very high quality and freely accessible. And there's always room for improvement, no doubt. But my goal is to ensure that students have the best opportunity to succeed, both academically and in life. I love grade 12 commencement ceremonies, seeing our kids ready to take the next steps. And one line that's always resonated with me is that I feel that we're not just educating kids, but we're raising young citizens, the next generation, the future of Canada. And I think we really need to have that look towards the future with every decision that we make.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for that. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing students in the district right now?
Well, no doubt the world has changed tremendously since I was raised in the Tri-Cities and gone through school here. Our classrooms have become more complex, putting strain on teachers and classroom resources. We see increased student anxiety, and increased absenteeism, increased distractions all around us every day. And so what's happening in schools is really a reflection of what we're seeing in the broader community, both in the community and online, both the positives and sometimes the negatives. So it's really important that we be preparing students for the world that they're going to be entering, giving them the tools that they need to thrive and succeed as adults.
Great. And if you're reelected, what would be your top 3 priorities during this term?
Well, my number 1 priority is always ensuring student success, including, of course, our most vulnerable learners. Number 2, ensuring that we have the best educators here in SD43. And 3, rebuilding our school infrastructure, and I'll touch a bit on each of those. Of course, ensuring students' success needs to be our number 1 priority. That is our core responsibility as a school board and as trustees. And to do that, we need to ensure that we have the best educators in our district. And that means continuing to be a district of choice for educators. We do have a continuing labor shortage in the education sector in British Columbia, so we need to be able to attract and retain those professional educators. And of course, number 3, continuing our good work on rebuilding our schools in our district, and building new schools in growing communities in our district. One item that I'm especially proud of is securing funding for the rebuild of Hazel Trembath Elementary School. I know a lot of people were surprised to learn that schools are insured by the provincial government, and therefore, when the school burned down, there were no guarantees that it would be rebuilt. And I can say we faced some resistance in getting that school approved. Hazel had relatively low enrollment, and there were other schools in the vicinity. But we knew two things. First of all, we needed Hazel in order to help deal with enrollment growth in the South Port Coquitlam area. And two, and more importantly, it was the right thing to do for that community to help heal those wounds that the tragic fire had caused.
How do you believe that SD43 can better support student success both academically and emotionally?
Yeah, so even prior to the pandemic and then emerging from it, we recognize the increase in student anxiety and mental health issues. Yes. And so one thing that we had done was formed a mental health task force to help look at that. And we brought together partners led by the school district, brought in municipalities, brought in Fraser Health, brought in Share Community and Family Services, and other community partners to really look at the issues. And one thing that I think surprised some of us around the table was that there were a myriad of community resources available, but it was a bit of a complex web in order to try and actually connect families with those services. And so I think what we learned was there really needed to be that one-stop shop for families, because when you're in crisis, it's hard to navigate big governmental systems. And so one of the lasting legacies that came out of that task force was actually the establishment of the Foundry in the Tri-Cities, creating that one-stop shop where families who are struggling can go to find those services for their kids.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. As you know, school districts face competing financial pressures. Michael, how would you approach budget decisions when resources are limited?
They are indeed. I joined the board in 2014, and it was at a time where the previous board had made some mistakes, we'll say. They had run a $13 million deficit the year before, laying off 600 teachers that year, cutting programs, cutting supply budgets. It's safe to say that was a low point for the district. We got the district back on track. We balanced the budget. We paid off the deficit, we rebuilt things, and we vowed to never repeat those mistakes again. So it comes down to responsible decision making, because we know that we can do anything that we put our minds to, but we can't do everything. Budgets are limited. That is the reality. So when we're making additions, we need to make sure that we're doing so in a financially sustainable manner. And with that in mind, we built a strong surplus policy so that any leftover funds at the end of the year are automatically rolled into the next 3 school years' budgets. And we're reinvesting those dollars back into the classroom where they belong. But that creates a smoothing action on the budget so that we don't wind up with those peaks and valleys, and helped to get the district off of that roller coaster ride that they had been on. Because we know that stability in the system is good for kids, it's good for staff, and that helps to drive student success.
Exactly. Now, are there any programs or services you feel should be expanded, protected, or improved within SD43?
Yes. One program that both myself and Trustee Pollock have been particularly passionate about is the need to have an alternate ed program in the Port Coquitlam area. We have some wonderful alt ed programs in our district, but the majority of them are all located on the far side of Coquitlam, and that is a long way to go for kids in POCO. And so we've really been strongly advocating to create an alt ed program to service students on the east side of the district, particularly in Port Coquitlam. I've brought it up many, many times, and I'm going to continue to fight for that for our community.
Great. As you touched on earlier, mental health continues to be a concern for many students and families. What role should the school district play in supporting students' well-being?
Yeah, we have a very important role to play in that. As we're working with the kids day in and day out, we see the need firsthand. I mentioned our mental health task force earlier. That was one item. we're already exceeding our student to counselor ratios by quite a bit, actually. But truthfully, it's not enough. The current government made some quite substantial commitments during the 2024 election campaign to improve students' access to counselors in schools. But frankly, the funding hasn't materialized to actually make that happen. So it's important that we hold government to account, we remind them of the promises that they've made, and we need to ensure that students have access to those important resources.
Thank you. How would you ensure that, though, including those with diverse learning needs, disabilities, and different cultural backgrounds? How would you make sure that they feel supported and included?
Yeah, it's important that students feel supported and included in schools. That's fundamental to learning. The term diversity, equity, and inclusion has gotten a bit of a bad rap over the last few years, I think in large part due to our neighbors to the south. But no one had issue with it when we simply called it anti-bullying, right? Everyone would agree that students shouldn't be bullied in school, that they should have a positive experience in school. And I think we need to take it that one step forward to not only ensure they're not being bullied, but to make sure that they're feeling included and supported within their classrooms. Certainly a big part of that is ensuring that we have the staff in place to help support the kids. We're adding 50 more education assistants next year. We've almost tripled the number of education assistants we have in our district since I started 12 years ago. And that's something I'm really proud of accomplishing. And we also hired a district principal of diversity and anti-racism in 2023 to help with those programs. But it's not just a one and done situation. It's not a check mark. It's something that we're going to have to continue to work on.
Thank you. Trustees often need to balance differing opinions from parents, staff, and students. How would you handle controversial issues while maintaining trust in the community?
Yeah, of course, with every issue, you have to take a bit of a different approach. But I think for most things, if you approach it with openness, honesty, and transparency, you build that trust with the community. Sometimes you do have people with extreme viewpoints, but I find for the most part, most people are kind of in the middle. They just want to know what's going on. They're looking for accurate information sources. Maybe they read something concerning online, but we all know how misinformation spreads quickly online. And it has been challenging to communicate with the loss of Tri-City News, amongst others. Providing that newspaper on the doorstep every week to families in the community, to communicate, so we've had to reimagine how we communicate. Good news, we have a new website which just launched this summer, and there's going to be a new parents app that's going to be coming out so that we can push those important updates of what's happening at their school and in the broader school community out directly to families. So it's not just another email in their mailbox. We all know we get far too many emails a day to read. So it's going to be a really important tool to get the general information out to families, but it's going to be a critical tool that will help in emergency situations and crisis communication.
Great, thank you. SD43 continues to grow rapidly. You talked a little bit about this with regards to enrollment. How should the district prepare for increasing enrollment and changing community needs?
This is where long-term planning is absolutely essential. Enrollment actually declined last year, and it's projected to dip a bit next year as well. But we have seen tremendous growth over the prior number of years. And we definitely have growth in certain areas in our district. Burke Mountain, obvious example. And we definitely, absolutely, desperately need Burke Mountain Middle School to be approved. Takes pressure off Coquitlam Middle School, takes pressure off Minnekata Middle School, and serves that general community. Provincial funding for that school is years behind where we needed it to be. And we all know, anyone who's been involved in education in our province, that the provincial funding model for new schools is broken. It simply doesn't work. You shouldn't have to have your other neighboring schools so overcrowded before you're allowed to move forward with planning and building a new school. We work very closely with our municipalities. We know where they're approving developments. We know where we're going to be seeing population growth. We have that information. We share that information with the province, but all too often it falls on deaf ears. So we end up having to do everything we can to manage that growth on our end. So, for example, one thing that we do is when we are planning to build a new school, we site it such that we know where an extension can go onto that school. So that few years down the road, when we need to add 2, 4, 8 classrooms, we know, okay, we'll blow out that wall, we'll build it out that way. And that helps us to manage the growth and minimize the impact on the current students of that school. And on several occasions, we have plowed forward with doing those detailed plans and what's called project development reports, and have often completed them before we've actually been approved to start them under the provincial process. And this was very successful, again, in the case of Hazel Trembath, in moving the project forward. It was a great example of, I think, where we achieved success in plowing forward without approvals, and when we were able to get the approvals, we were able to move forward more quickly.
Okay, just have a couple more questions before we wrap up, Michael. What role should technology and artificial intelligence play in the classroom over the next 5 years? I mean, we're not going to be getting away from it, so
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So my day job is actually in information technology, and I recently completed a degree in technology management just this past June. And so this is new technology that is emerging and was going on through my recent programs of schooling. So this topic I perhaps understand a bit better than some. Technology is rapidly evolving. And we need to learn how to adapt just as quickly. It's safe to say that if we were to put in a rigid rule set in September, by June, that's going to be out of date. Likely by January, it's going to be out of date. So it's a matter of reimagining how we're going to assess student achievement. We don't want to lose those core competencies that are so important for our students. Critical thinking, assessment, or analyzing information that they receive. We need students to have those abilities, because the last thing we want to do is to turn those skills over to tech giants. But we also can't live under a rock and pretend that things like AI don't exist. Right. Our students will be entering the workforce. AI is being used in the workplace. And so we need to ensure that we're preparing students to have those 21st century skills.
Well, that's fantastic. We want to thank you for being in the studio today with us. Today you're hearing from Michael Thomas. He's up for re-election for School District 43 in Port Coquitlam. He believes in student success first. So on October 17th, make sure that you are casting your vote. It's your right to vote, so don't forget to do that. My name's Cathy Cena. I'm with Tri-Cities Community Television. Thanks so much for watching.